So my G90, love this thing. I'm probably going to end up with several of them. I love these radios. But it doesn't have 2 meter or 70 centimeter. So now it does, sort of. So what I did is I made a little bracket, and this is just my first prototype to see how everything fits, that uses 4 bolts on the back here that holds the cover on. I just loosen those and then pop that on. It gives me a place to hang my G90 mic. It also gives, it's just a cheap 2 meter KT 8900 little 25 watt radio. Nothing fancy or special, but it's a good little radio, so nothing wrong with it either. But I like it. I like the way it's set up. And then I've got another little thing here for the microphone for that. So now this is the only material I had. It was actually a panel off of a machine that I've had sitting in the woods for I don't know how long. And I plasma cut it. It's a little thicker than the material I wanted to make this out of, so that's a little tight. So when you put that mic in there, it don't want to come out real good. But it actually, I just had to take and bend them out just a hair, and it seems to, the more I mess with it, the more it kind of loosens up and goes in there. But the idea is now it's all put together, and the way I did this, here's the model, is I scored along here. So you can see that, those cuts that are in where the bends are. And really did a good job with the plasma table. I was actually pretty impressed. Now the holes, if I had a laser cut this, it would have been a lot prettier. When I plasma cut it, these little tabs right here didn't make it. It actually when it pierced, it blew those out. So I just had a little piece hanging on here, a little piece hanging on there. I did the mounting part down here as a slot instead of a hole. And what that allowed me to do is down here, I just loosened the screws, put one side and just sort of let it catch the screws, flexed the bracket out a little bit, dropped it down, and went into the other screws, and it worked like a dream. You can see I've welded that together with a welder, just where the seams were. I also put some extra holes in here. So I put these holes, this row of holes here, and I put these holes on the outside here, just in case I want to attach something else to it at a later date. That gives me the ability to do that. Thing is, with CNC stuff, it really don't matter as far as, you can add all the holes you want to. The machine's going to do it in 2 seconds. So it makes it a lot easier to do it that way. And the reason I did it this way, so these holes here, so you can see those slots, I've got 4 bolts in there holding it together. They're evenly spaced, and I added extras to kind of go back a little farther, so you can see there's 2 holes in front of where that's mounting now. But what I'm actually going to do is where these 2 holes are, I'm going to make a handle that comes out, over, and up like that, and you'll be able to grab the handle and pick it up and just carry the whole thing. The idea being, with this setup, I've got, I can disconnect my antenna pretty quickly. I've done BNC with all of these, because none of this is going over 25 watts anyway. Or I'm sorry, yeah, 25 watts. That's what this one puts out. This one puts out 20. But, oops. So this gives me kind of a nice compact setup, and when I'm camping with the handle, I just disconnect power, disconnect antenna, grab, set it somewhere, and it's out of my way. All of my radios are somewhere out of the way. I also did this. I've got some BNC connectors that go through the wall now, and my antenna, instead of running down through there, up through the door and tripping on it and all that kind of stuff, I have a One of these is my high frequency antenna, and one of these is my 2 meter 70 centimeter antenna, and then I've just got some little short jumpers going to the radios. It kind of cleans things up a little bit. I've got crap everywhere, but that gives me as compact a setup as I can get, I think. I did leave some space here just to make it easier to install for the most part, but I don't know. I kind of like the way it sets everything. I can see this well. It's pointed up to where I can see all the buttons and do everything. And then this one, same thing. I can see all my buttons and do everything. I will probably, I say a lot. I'll probably eventually replace this with a different bracket. The cool thing though is I've got the file, and all I've got to do is just change it. I know this works now. What I was going to do, there we go again, is make this thickness was supposed to be, I think, 0.48, so it's really thin. This was right at 0.70, I think is what it was. So it's a little bit stronger, but it's what I had. So at some point I'll cut some 0.48 stuff at work, and I'll throw one of these into the mix with it. But it just gives me a place to hang everything, gives me a place for everything to go. And what I might do is make a little stow thing here, maybe even like a drawer that goes in and out, I don't know, that will give me the ability to basically have, store this kind of stuff, antennas, whatnot. So this originally was going to go into like a weatherproof box, and I've got that somewhere. Put that thing. It's a little stainless steel box. Oh, there it is. So that was the original intent. That was going to go on the outside of the camper. I would have 4 screws that would hold it in and bolt it up nice and snug. These 3 holes were supposed to be for a hinge that would hinge back here, and then a lid that would sort of fold over it like that, and when it hinged, it would hinge up like this and create a cover to kind of keep water and stuff off of these connectors. My BNC connectors, they're not waterproof, but I've not seen it be a big deal yet. Maybe it is, maybe I'm doing this all wrong, but everything I've seen, the BNC connectors, since I've had my 40-meter dipole up there, it's literally a BNC cable connected into a binding post BNC thing, and every bit of it's outside. It's all outside. It's all in the rain. So I was like, you know what? That is a much simpler setup, and I don't have this on the outside. And in all reality, if you see the thickness of this, I've got a few threads here. I didn't realize it, but there's like insulation and stuff on the outside of this, or on the inside. And so when you drill through it, it's pretty thick. So by the time I shoved it in there, I could barely catch a thread and get the connector on, where this is thin enough that I've actually got extra threads. But if you would have added the thickness of this box to the thickness of that out there, it would have been a problem. Now what I might do is take this same setup, same design, same idea, and make bigger holes here. So essentially it doesn't use this as part of the mount. This would basically have a hole that I could go to the outside and set that up and then bolt it in. So I can still do it, I'll just have to modify what I'm doing, and my connectors are just going through the fiberglass instead of going through this. So kind of sucks I did all that work to build that and then make it nice and pretty, and it didn't work. So anyway, that's part of it. But yeah, that's my little bracket that I've got. I'm going to have a handle that'll just come up, over, and down there that I'll be able to just grab the whole thing and pick it up. And when I'm ready to turn this into a bed, my power is coming from right here, and I can just unplug and go. So my intention is to make This doesn't really require really thick cabling. It barely pulls any amps. This don't pull many amps at all. If you look at the cable that it came with, where's that? It's pretty thin. It's not real thick wire. And then this thing, you can see it's really thin wire as well. So if I've got probably 12 gauge feeding this radio, I'm going to basically, come out to the connector and then come out and come out. So I'll have a triple headed connector that's fed with 12 gauge wire. So you've got 12 gauge and then you've got little lead and little lead. The 12 gauge feeds this radio. The smaller one will feed this little fan thing in case I'm doing data, stuff like that. And then one of the other ones will feed this radio. The thing is, I'm not going to be talking on both radios at the same time. So your transmit is where your power comes in usually. So I'm not going to be using both. I'll be using the high frequency for something. I'll be doing something like that, and then I'll be talking on this. Now, if I go to like a data mode, that might be different. I might be using my laptop to transmit data over this, and I want to key up on this. So that might screw that up, but if that's the case, I have separate circuits here. So you've got two separate circuits, and I'll probably put two more. Dang it, go away. So that would give me the ability to isolate if I needed to. And each one of these is going to be circuit protected. They're going to have all the different fuses and stuff like that. But I thought that, this is something I whipped up in SolidWorks in about 15 minutes. Just kind of looked at what I wanted, and it gives me a really nice compact way to hold all of these radios. And now I've got it, I guess it's kind of like my little ham shack in a box to some degree. The only thing that I'm missing is the G90 does not do 6 meter. I don't know why, and I'd love to see like a G91 or a G95 or whatever, that if they would ever come out with one that also does 6 meter, even if it's a little bit bigger, that gives you 6 meter and maybe 2 meter 70 centimeter. That way you could have a true ham shack in a box in one of these units. And for this setup, this works great. I honestly, 6 meters, maybe it's good. I don't know. I've never been on it. I've never needed to. I basically, when I got into high frequency, I've stayed on 40 and 80 and 20. 40, 80, and 20 are the ones that I've been on for the most part. They seem to be pretty active. And for NIVIS propagation, it's 40 and 80 anyway. 6 meter, 10 meter, 20 meters, basically useless from what I understand. So if I am looking at local comms for any kind of disaster recovery or camping or whatever that is, then those are useless bands anyway. So I'm going to be going with, I'm going to be using 40 and 80 for the most part, and running these two radios. So the next thing I've got to do is a deployable antenna mount. Right now I've got that Harbor Freight pole that is in this corner over here, and going up, so you would see it right through there if you were outside. What I want is a pole that is coming from here and up. So I've got a frame that I'm building over top here, and what I'm going to do is have a pole that comes out another 2 feet this way, and you'll have a connection point here. It'll hinge here, and when you pull, it will basically pick the pole up. And that is going to be about 10 feet. So my pole now is coming from the ground level, roughly a couple feet above ground level, and it's going up about 20 feet, 20, 25 feet, something like that. So you're already losing 10 feet by the time you get to the top of this. And my pole is a little bit higher than that. So if you take the level of my pole that's over here, this frame, you're already 10 feet and then some up, and you've got a 10-foot span here. So if I add another 10 feet that hinges at this point and goes out that way, and even if I, give myself 2 extra feet that way, maybe I got 25 feet up, literally just with one single pole that goes across there. And the way it would work is, say this is your pole, and your frame, I know this is not to scale at all, but this is your frame here, so it comes up from the back of the camper and then continues that way. You hinge right here. You attach to this to a little hand winch that comes down here or wherever it goes, and when you start cranking that hand winch, it lifts this. So even if it's heavier, that is going to be your leverage point, and that winch will easily pick that up. So then you would pick up your pole here. That gives you 10 feet to here. That gives you 10 feet to here. That is now, say 10 to 12 feet in all reality to this point above the camper. So you're at 22 feet immediately. And then if you add another 10-foot section, now I'm at 30 feet. I'm at 33, whatever that ends up being. It would have to be telescoping, so you wouldn't be able to do the whole 10-foot length. But if you made it 12 feet, and then you make your telescoping section on the inside 10 feet, and you've got 2 feet where it's inside of the other part, then it would give you a pretty stout setup. And what I'm thinking is, you can buy Unistrut or C-channel, and it's like this, and you've got a gap here. So if I could do that on the outside of my vertical pole, if you had a pulley right here that goes down through the vertical pole to the bottom of the telescoping pole, then essentially that pulley comes down to the outside of your outside pole. You crank that up, and the rope would essentially pick that up for you. So I'm not sure if, it's only really 10 feet, so something like Unistrut may be more than sufficient to do that. It's not a permanent thing. It's going to be something I set up and go wherever I go, and it'll work. But, that's my probably the next thing I've got to do. I've got to finish the frame out here, and then I've got to add that. So right now I've got that Harbor Freight pole that goes up through there, and that Harbor Freight pole is working, but I don't like the way it's set up. I want it to be completely contained in the camper. So essentially, I can drive to where I'm going, I can pick it up, and worst case scenario, I use, what are those little things at? I think I put them in here. Nope, I didn't. Oh, no, maybe. Hang on, I'm looking for something. I can't find them. They're the little dog fence crank-in things, so you could screw those into the ground. That becomes your anchor point for your inverted V. And that gives you everything you need. But yeah, there's my little setup. There's everything, and right now it's running off of my 12-volt batteries that are in here and out there. So right now I'm just keeping a battery tender on those batteries as they're getting charged. They're getting discharged in here, essentially. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty nifty setup. So that's my prototype. I'm eventually going to build a different one. And if anybody has a bracket like this you want me to build for you, I can probably build you a couple and send them to you. So if that's something that somebody needs, let me know, and I can work something up pretty quickly and easily if you can give me measurements or whatever it is. So if you've got a G90, I've already got that. And if you have a specific need, let me know, and I'll see if I can put you something together. So, but yeah, I thought that worked out pretty good. So have a great day. Bye.